call the roll.
Looks like Randy hasn't seen.
Art, you got to read that little note at the
Oh,
beginning.
I got to read the note. Okay, sorry, I bypassed the note. In accordance with the statutes of the state of Illinois and the ordinances of the city of Wooddale, notice is hereby given that the city council will continue its regular standing committee meetings at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, January 14th, 2021 in the council chambers of the City Hall, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois, for purposes set forth in the following agenda. And you meant the one above that. In accordance with the governor's executive orders, the Illinois Department of Public Health, IDPH, regulations, and the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, guidance, the city has determined that in-person meetings or meetings conducted under the purview of the Open Meetings Act are not practical or prudent. Therefore, remote participation is permitted. Is that good?
Yes, sir.
I'll read the other paragraph too, if we
I
can just go.
appreciate it.
All right, so now I'll call the Finance and Administration Committee to order and ask the minute taker if she'll please call the roll.
Alderman Sorrentino,
Here.
Alderman Jacob,
Here.
Alderman Woods,
Here.
Alderman Sismarski, Alderman Roy Wesley, Alderman Vicky Wesley,
Here.
Alderman Catalano,
Here. Here.
Alderman Messina,
He's here. I think he's having technical difficulties. Maybe Nick can handle that on the back end.
Got his hand up.
Yeah, he's been texting me. He says he's in the waiting room, but he's showing up in this room. So Nick, I don't know if you can try to help him.
Said he was the
All
IT
right,
guy.
We got him now.
Hello,
Randy,
I'm
can
here,
you hear us?
guys. I'm here.
All right, excellent.
In the waiting room. again.
IT is here. Good.
Nice. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 10th, 2020.
So move.
Have a
Second.
second? Any questions? Corrections? Roll call?
Alderman Sorrentino,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Lynn, you're muted.
Yes.
Alderman Woods,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Catalano,
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Next, we have a report and recommendation, fiscal year 2022 CIP discussion. Mr. Wilson, would you like to say a few words?
As few as possible.
Yeah, all right, that works.
I think Nick or Jeff, you give me the screen share, please. That would be great. Says we've done the past number of years. We're going to go through the CIP. This year's going to be a little bit different since obviously we're on Zoom, but we're going to do our best to go through it slide by slide and hopefully make it as easy as possible for everybody. So hopefully everybody can see the cover of the CIP now.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So this will be a little bit overkill, but this way we're all on the same page, literally. So we have the cover, table of contents, and going into the letter of transmittal. Again, this just as a summary of what's in here. The first couple of pages are kind of why we do a CIP, what the purpose is, a few definitions, priorities of the plan itself. This page goes through and does a high level of some of the significant projects. The only couple that are in here is the Stormwater Master Plan, the Ward 2 and 3 item. Next page talks about funding sources. This one's an interesting one because there's the normal ones, the non-home rule sales tax, the utility tax, and a few others. If there's a grant here or there, but we added this potential funding sources line item below here. So there is the capital bill that has 3 million in road projects. It's in there. We haven't gotten that money yet. That's why it's still in potential. There's MFT funding. There's a number of projects that would technically qualify for MFT funding. We're just kind of trying to figure out where the money would be best spent to kind of maximize some other projects. Right now, it's looking like the MFT funding is going to be the city's match on the Elizabeth Bridge project. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that page, but as presented, we're just using one of the known funding sources, but it's looking like that's going to flip to MFT, so that'll free up some cash flow in the future years. There's also the possibility of using TIF funding on a few projects. Obviously, it would either have to be in the TIF or the project would be needed as a result of activities within the TIF, what they call the infamous nexus, the but-for test. So that's out there. And then also, as the council's aware, we do have the city-owned land, and the intent was that if that gets sold, to use that money to potentially pay down some of the line of credits or some other things. So that's something else that would have a pretty significant impact on the funding sources. But for right now, since we haven't sold any land, we can't account for that. But we are aware that that is a distinct possibility.
Hey, Brad. Or Art.
Go ahead, Alderman Jacob.
Can we go back to the funding sources real quick? Where you say on the TIF funding, that must be balanced with other needs of the TIF district? Doesn't mean we have to we don't have to match. If we borrow, if we take 500,000, we don't have to give everybody else 500,000. That's what do you mean by balance there? Is all I'm asking.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really, it's just more of an acknowledgement that we have to be cognizant of other projects. So, if a development or somebody, wants TIF funding to assist with a project like the Hagili project a couple of years ago, we just need to be cognizant that those types of things could come in. So
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that that's what the balance didn't mean anything. We have to all have equal amounts or anything.
correct.
Thank
Okay. Moving on, just a summary of the unfunded projects. As you're aware, these are just presented in the last section of the book, the last few pages, but we do put them in the letter of transmittal just to kind of let everybody know that these are kind of hanging out there. The list is a little bit pared back, a little bit different than years past, as some things are advancing, some have kind of fallen off. So this is where the unfunded is at this time for this fiscal year for this CIP. Moving on, adoption. Based upon the comments tonight, we'll update the CIP accordingly and then roll the costs associated with the projects for fiscal year 22 into the full operating budget, which is going to come out electronically on February 12th for discussion at the February 25th meeting. So this is going to, like I said, directly roll into that. And then here's the calendar for the CIP. We are here. The next last one, obviously, 2 weeks from now would be if needed. I think the goal, seeing that this is the only thing on the agenda tonight, would be to get through the entire document. But again, make no assumptions, and where it goes tonight. Going forward, the project expenses, I'll make this a little bit bigger here, so it'll be a little on the screen. So the way that we have the CIP constructed, in fiscal 22, transportation, those are both the general capital projects, and the water and sewer is funded through the water and sewer fund. So you can see 16 million projects in this year. About 7.5 of that is the Ward 2 and 3 Stormwater Project. So if you take that out, 16 minus 7.5, now about 8.5 million in, what would otherwise be called, normal or kind of recurring projects, which does kind of flow through pretty well to the following year. And then a little bit more in the out years due to some other, couple other bigger projects here and there. I believe 24 is public works work. And then over the 5 years, as presented, about 58.6 million in projects. So again, just, a little bit going on within the city. So, and, we'll do our best to get all that done. But that's why we have this meeting every year to realign everything and make sure we're heading in the right direction. Going through to the pro forma, again, and one quick note, I did get a call on this already. This number here should say 21, so I hope that didn't confuse too many people for the asterisks. Cash flow rolls through from 21, not 20. So as you can see, again, we start with the cash balance, add in the revenues, take out the expenses, and then this is what we estimate the ending cash balance to be at the end of 22. That goes up here to 23, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, the next few years are a little tight based on how it's constructed, but also think back to the potential funding sources. If we sell some land, get rid of that line of credit, or we use MFT money, that's going to change some of these. So, but this is, as presented and as the costs are estimated and revenues are estimated, this is what we're looking like. On the general fund, these are the transportation and non-transportation related ones. For the water and sewer side of things down here, we are just at this time saying that the water and sewer fund is going to be able to absorb, based on current rates and current project load, about 1.25 million per year. Obviously, when we get out a few years, that you see the red here, so we'll have to make some decisions as to what we want this 1.25 million to become, but then that also is going to have an impact on what the water rates are going to have to be and how the water and sewer fund is constructed from an operational standpoint. So at least for the next couple of years, it's looking okay. Then when we get out, when we get to those pages, we'll see why this occurs. But the next couple of years are looking okay. Then some decisions going to have to be made out in 24, 25 and on. So moving on to the summary for transportation section. Again, the Citywide Stormwater Master Plan. This is the Ward 2 and 3 Stormwater Project. 7.5 million of it is in here. The other $500,000 is the debt service on the bonds that the city sold for the phase that we completed this year. Street resurfacing and sidewalk, that's the streets program. And then this 900,000, this is for the closeout of the intersection. As you may recall, the state just closed it out with Duntaman. We have not yet got the final invoice for that. So we do need to keep rolling that forward, because we expect at some point in the future we will receive that invoice, but as of now have not. So we need to roll that forward. Then on 23, work on the bridge. And then we'll get onto these other ones when we get to the project page, but some more stormwater work, streets program, and then pretty much that's it in the transportation section. Going forward is the bridge, some stormwater work, and streets and sidewalks. So moving ahead to the bridge, these are the costs for the bridge that HR Green has estimated based upon their initial review. As I mentioned, we did get the STP bridge funding, which is an 80-20 cost share. So the STP money is 80%, the city's portion is 20%. So this split down here represents that 80-20 split. And as I said, we're looking into using MFT money for our share of it. So if we do, then that would free up, 60,000 this year, 77,000 in a couple of years, and a little over $500,000 out in 24 which would help those cash flows. I did have a conversation with HR Green, with Mr. Crawl late last week, and he confirmed that this would be an eligible expense. And since this is an IDOT project, it would make a lot of sense because a lot of the paperwork is pretty much the same. So it wouldn't be a significant added burden to use MFT money on this because, again, it's a lot of the paperwork would be the same either way.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Wesley.
Is the Forest Reserve in on this already or no? Have we approached them or yes or no?
Yeah, I can answer that real quick.
Go ahead, Mr. Murmas.
Yeah, they are in. They've been in since the beginning. They're excited about the project, so they are going to be definitely a willing and active partner.
So what is their portion going to be? I'm sorry, Art.
Go ahead.
I don't think we have fully been able to develop that because we don't have all the specs on our end and engineering done on our end yet. I'll let Alan chime in. He may know a little bit more, but my guess is we do not know their contribution yet.
Chairman, this is
Mr. Lang, do you have anything to add, or?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So we've decided that the best way to approach this would be to have our agreement with HR Green finalized and approved by IDOT before we began discussions with the Forest Reserve to get into specifics. But as Manager Murma said, we've been in contact with them throughout this process and they are eager and willing to participate.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Wilson?
Oh, sure. Okay. Just making sure we were.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Yeah, and to Alderman Wesley's point, though, that could change this as well if they have some skin in the game too. That'll a little bit too. So it's a good question. Moving forward, citywide stormwater master plan. As I mentioned, $7.5 million is what Robinson is currently projecting this next phase to cost, which is predominantly the portion in the school, the field. There's some other work involved as well, but that's the lion's share of it. And then the debt service on the bonds, this number out here, the little over $1 million is the debt service on the existing bonds plus the IEPA loan. That's the estimate at this point, assuming $7.5 million is what we would take from the IEPA. This $240,000 in fiscal 23, just giving everybody a heads up. If you read through here, through the narrative, will be a new study to prioritize other stormwater projects. We know there's a few areas in Ward 1 that need a hard looking at. So that would be probably one of the main focuses of this study. And then we know there's also the southern portion of the Ward 2 and 3 project that kind of looming out there, but hasn't been programmed in yet at this point in time.
Can I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Catalano.
So didn't we already do the study on the south side of Ward 3? The last time that Robinson was here, that, you know, he had the presentation.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, so the study for that area has been done. They're still working through some of the design elements of that. It is included in the packet that they sent to the IEPA for the low interest loan.
Okay.
But it's been broken up into two sections. It's been broken up into the section, I guess, by the school and then that southern portion. So it sounds like there's still a little bit more work on that southern portion.
So when you're saying, excuse me, so when you're saying it still needs to be monitoring, what do you mean by that? I mean, we know it floods over there, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I said, I think what I heard the last time was that they know it does, but there's also, you know, trying to get the northern section done and see if that perhaps helps the southern section at all. They're not sure that it will.
I don't think so, right.
Yeah, but they want to see if it does, which might change the design and scope down there.
I mean, that's a separate altogether with the, you know, with the sewers in that area. I mean, it's totally different. It runs in a different direction, but anyway. So is this gonna slow down as far as getting the project going when we had a timeline, or is now it's slowing it down for a few years, or what's the consensus on that?
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I think at this point, and I don't know if Mr. Lang wants to chime in, I think, trying to get the northern part done. And then, like I said, they have some design elements with the southern one they still have to do. So I don't know that it's slowed down maybe more than a year perhaps. But like I said, there's a couple of things they're still working through down there as I understand it.
Okay, I just want to avoid going back to July 12th, 2018, when all the residents packed City Hall. I don't want to see that again.
Mr. Wilson, you want to continue?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, we'll keep that. That's definitely on the radar of my catalog. So.
Good.
And then here's a couple of things that are out there, and you can see the Ward 2 and 3. The southern one is still out there for sure. So it hasn't dropped off. Haven't forgotten about it. Moving forward to the street resurfacing. This looks a little bit different than in years past because we've kind of moved, I guess, everything that has to do with the roads program in here. Before there was the resurfacing in here, and there was some sidewalk stuff over there. Then striping was in another spot, and the reclamite was in yet another spot. So we've tried to streamline this a little bit and put all of that into one sheet so we can get a broader or a better picture of the broad program. Because before, like I said, it was a little decentralized and it was a little hard to kind of get our heads around what we were really spending each year. And so this is, in an effort to get a better picture of what the total roads program looks like between striping and the reclamite and patching and everything else. And you may recall we did the street sufficiency study in fiscal 20, so last year. And so these roads, this program again is built based off of that. In a couple of these years, I believe you should have seen an email earlier today saying that we did get some money from the SDP for certain roads. And so they've been programmed in here into 23 and 25 respectively.
I have a question.
Mayor, please, go ahead.
And so I see all the streets and it's all about resurfacing and everything. But I know when we did the street sufficiency study, we had a lot of streets. There were a couple ones, some twos and some threes, and those are all the ones that need reconstruction. Where are those going to fit in here? Because if we do 5 years of resurfacing and don't touch any of those, I'm sure 5 years of snow plows is going to make those pretty much gravel roads, a couple of those streets.
Chairman, this is Director Lang. I can answer that.
Go ahead, Mr. Lang.
Thank you, Chairman. If you'll recall back when we were discussing the results of the street sufficiency study, we talked about the life cycle of pavement and how the optimal time to resurface a road is when it falls into that 4 to 6 range on the PACER rating. Certainly roads that are rated between 1 and 3 need to be addressed also, as they are considered failing. However, we feel that our funds are best used by prioritizing resurfacing of the streets in the 4 to 6 range, and then sprinkling in some of those reconstructions each year to address those roadways. So this year, we've added Elmwood from Sunnyside to Montrose, which is going to be reconstructed. We're also going to be hopefully moving forward with George Street in conjunction with Itasca, which will require a good degree of base patching and reconstruction. And then we'll continue that trend in years forward to address some of those lower rated streets.
Can I have a follow-up?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
Maybe in the future, we could highlight, put an asterisk or something for those that are going to be reconstructions versus resurfacing. But when we get to some, I know some of those streets that were 1, 2s, and 3s were over where that southern end of that flood project is over there in Ward 3.
Mhm.
So,
Arlene.
right, I think Darlene's one of the streets that's at the bottom of the, was a 1 or a 2, I think. I don't recall. We're gonna look at, when we reconstruct those streets, we're also gonna redo those sewers. Per se, I think we got 8 and 10-inch sewers, storm sewers over there. That would be the time that we put in the, whatever the engineers, you need, say we need 18 or 24-inch pipes. I would imagine they're gonna go to a minimum of 18, could go as high as 36. And then some of those streets, on that end of town, the storm sewers don't go all the way to the corners. So we should correct those problems. I know I mentioned this before. We should correct those problems and get them all the way to the corner. So anybody who wants to tie in, because we still have a lot of homes that basically are hooked up to the back, where in that area, the residents owned that pipe, which was probably a 4-inch pipe, and there's a lot of collapsing going on where people, of course, never took care of it. So if we're gonna have storm sewers in the front and we're gonna upsize for stormwater, we should be able to upsize and so the full block has access to those lines.
Sump pumps.
Right, for the sump pumps. But again, because right now, I think the 36-inch line we ran on Prospect, I think we connected one of those backyard drains to our new 36-inch pipe over there on Prospect. But how much of that 4-inch pipe going down the block is garbage and is causing issues? And then people are coming to us for the rear yard drainage anyways. So they'll be able to hook in up front. But again, the streets, I want to make sure we're staying on top of those streets that need reconstruction, and especially in the area of the flood project, that we take care of the storm sewers at the same time, so we don't have to break the street twice, or make sure we align the projects. I know we're not going to do that tonight. We're just worried about next year, and I'm okay. But just going forward, I want to make sure we're paying attention to that stuff.
Sorry to interrupt, but Alderman Mike Sismarski just joined the meeting as well a little while ago. Just wanted the note taker to reflect that.
Okay.
Mr. Wilson, you want to carry on?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just moving forward, here's the listing of the streets, and then you can see the years with the asterisk, so the years with the SDP funding, and then the caret is the street that would be covered with the SDP funding. And to the mayor's point, yeah, we can, I can work with Mr. Lang to denote streets that would be receiving, you know, more treatment than just the resurfacing, some of the reconstructs. We can work on that, and you know, maybe repurpose an asterisk or a caret or something like that. That's easy enough. So yeah, we'll work with him to get that updated in the final version. And then in 25, I believe there's going to be another study. So 26, 25, 26 right now are pretty tentative. But to your point though, on 26, a lot of the Ward 3 streets that would likely probably be addressed before then with that southern portion of the stormwater project. But for right now, 26 is kind of where they're programmed in. Like I said, obviously, if the stormwater project goes before then they'll be addressed before that. So,
Can I have another question?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
I'm sorry. Bruce, you just talked about Foster, Central, Spruce. Is that the SDP funding that we are I thought we received that money. So if somebody doesn't come through with their project, ours gets bumped up. Would it be coming up this summer then? Is that the project? Is that the one on Foster?
Chairman, this is Director Lang. I can help answer that.
Go ahead, Mr. Lang.
So we had previously been awarded Central Avenue, and it was programmed into federal fiscal year 2025, which is actually calendar year 2025. And recently, several projects actually dropped off the STP active program. So Central was actually to be able to move forward a year into our fiscal year 2025, and Foster was able to be moved from the contingency plan into the active plan for our fiscal year 2023. So both streets are now guaranteed funding, and we're moving forward with both of them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This page, like I mentioned earlier, is just the closeout of the Wooddale and Irving. This sheet has been just kind of rolling forward for the last couple of years, and like I said, we're kind of just in a holding pattern unless and until we get something from IDOT on this one. We might see this page next year. I don't know, but this, like I said, this is just, that's what it is. That's what the estimate is. So until we get it, we just have to keep reprogramming it. So moving forward to the non-transportation, you can see there's quite a few items in fiscal 22. We'll go through those all in a moment. 23 gets a little bit less. And then when we get out to 24 and 25, it's kind of the recurring ones, the street lights, facade program, we'll hear noise, rear yard drainage, public works building that I believe is done in 26. So after the first couple of years, it's just a lot of the recurring items. But I know there's going to be some other one-time items that come up between now and then, but really the bulk of the new items are in 22 and 23. So moving forward into IT, fiscal 22 is be to replace all of the citywide office computers. And, you know, this in the narrative looks like the last time they were replaced was in fiscal 23. So I'm not a big technology expert, but to get 9 years out of a desktop these days seems pretty remarkable. So I think we did a good job last time in building those. I think Mr. Case did a great job. And so this will be fiscal 22. So all the way up to April of 22. I know we're still finishing ERP. He has a couple other things to do, but this would, you know, occur sometime during the fiscal year. Moving on, streetlight installations. These are the city streetlights that typically come in via like the petitions for a streetlight on a particular street. And you know, the city, a couple of years we put in one year we put in 4. I think this year, I think we maybe have done 1. I think I put 18,000 in because I wasn't sure if there was anything out there at the current time. But there haven't been a lot of activity the last year and a half on this sheet. But we do just kind of plug in the 30,000. And you may recall that really it's all depending on where the power is and how much they cost. This 30,000 could get, you know, 4 or 5 lights, or if the power, the box is long as it is, could be 2. So it really
Mr. Woods?
where the drop is. So
Yes, Alderman Wesley.
Okay. Could I go back to page 21 for a minute
Sure.
on a non-transport expenditure?
Sure, go ahead.
What's the $200,000 for the Metro lot, parking lot? Are we doing it?
It'll be coming up in one of the pages.
All right, fine. I'll wait.
Can I have a question on the streetlights?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Catalano.
Yeah, Mr. Lang, the street light that was put up on Irving and Prospect is still off-centered. Are they gonna, is the contractor gonna go out and fix that?
Yes, we have spoken to the contractor about correcting that issue. I'll provide a follow-up shortly.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on this page as well.
Sure, go ahead, Mayor, please.
Alderman Woods. I do
All
too.
right.
Okay, so some years, so we allocate so much funds every year, and so I think this year we still have 18,000. I know a few years ago, we discussed about lighting up streets that were completely dark. Why don't we, instead of just taking this money, this 18,000, and put it back, why can't we pick a street in one ward, and we get 3 or 4, we light up a block? listen, this project was like, I forget what you guys said, it was like $2 million or something. I know at 30,000, it'll take forever. But if we start lighting up some streets as we go along, we have this money. Unless, maybe I'm in the minority, but I thought we had quite a few people that wanted to light up the streets. So I don't know where we stand, but just an idea. We can use the money. It's not being spent. We can start lighting up some slowly. It's going to take time, but you pick one ward, every switch off wards, whatever, and go from there.
I agree, Mayor.
Yeah.
I had Herman wanted streetlights, and the reason why they didn't get streetlights is because one person didn't send in his survey, so they get no streetlights at this point. So I mean, I like that idea. We should do one street at a time.
That's if we have money left over.
Correct.
Alderman Woods?
Yeah, Alderman Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the same thing. I thought we already had this discussion and we already said we were gonna do this.
No.
No, we weren't because of the price tag
Right.
on it.
Well,
So-
I thought, just like the mayor said, we'd use this. I know we had the discussion where we'd start picking streets, whether the police department picks them.
No.
Or
Yeah, I mean, we could look at that, but if we start taking this money, if somebody does ask, then that money is not available. So are we saying we're gonna start 2 columns, or we're gonna eliminate the call and ask for a light because we're gonna use the money to do a block?
Okay. Can I respond?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
So right now we have 18,000. So the way we do it, we have to do a survey. So even if we're starting right now, by the time we get the survey, it's going to be April or whatever. And we're going to get into the new budget anyways. We would probably do it in June, right? So
Right.
if we haven't spent the money by January, we should have something ready to go. And we can, whatever ward you want to start, I don't care if we pick out of a hat. We'll see the streets that only have lights that, I mean, just at the corners, they have lights. And if they got a long block, the rest of the block is pitch black. So just an idea. I mean, let's face it, 30,000 is not going to get us far. And if I remember right, this was over $2 million. So 30,000, $20 million at 30,000 will take a long time. But you know what? We get a few up every year, every couple of years, no problem. I don't care.
And so my point is that that's okay. So if that's the way we want to turn, we use that money to do what you're saying to do. And
Right.
that's what it's being used for. We no longer have the call-in money. We'll just make that, somebody calls in, we'll make that the next block we do.
And-
Right?
Well,
Or-
see, when right now we have the policy, if somebody calls in, we do the survey, right? And if we
Right.
don't get a certain percentage, they don't get the lights.
Right.
But if we're just picking the streets and starting to put them in, you know, and the lights will fall, whatever, I think it's 300 feet. I think I asked, I don't know, Alan or the chief, whoever, somebody said the number 300 feet apart, whatever. And if we're only getting 3 lights or 4 lights, so be it. But 3 lights could actually do a block.
Right. No. I'm not disagreeing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'm okay with making that decision. So in December, we have nobody getting a survey. You know,
Right. You just pick a block, and if we get, what I was saying is if then people call in, you don't do the survey, you could add them as the next block.
and whatever, that's,
Right.
but you see, then if we do that, then what happens the following year for the summer, right? Are we gonna do the survey or not do the survey?
what?
I would say not do it, because then, unless then you'd have to add another revenue stream for another program.
Right,
One to
right,
replace a block at a time and one to,
right. And I don't want to add more money to this line item.
right. So that's what I'm saying. Take this revenue and then you're gonna turn it into doing a block a year. Or
Yeah,
however it works out. And in the future, if we get a little more money and we're able to put more money into it, we could do that. But
right. No, just an idea.
Alderman Woods?
yeah, Alderman Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, my suggestion is kind of what you guys are saying, but let's pick, you know, in the policy, let's put in the policy that if you don't pick lights could only be picked from such and time to such and time, and whatever that time frame is. And like say after February, if we have nothing, the city's gonna pick one automatically.
Right.
So people could still pick, but you know, and if somebody calls us and say March, then they'll have to go into the next fiscal year.
Right, that's what I say.
Okay,
I'll just go on the list and that'll be the kind of programming or selection process of the next street.
okay. I wasn't clarified.
Yeah.
Want some clarification. Wasn't sure exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I didn't make it clear enough, but yeah, that's what I was trying to say if I didn't make it clear enough. So, all right, I think we got that covered. So, Mr. Wilson, if you want to.
Sure.
Oh, sleep.
No? Okay. Okay, yeah, so that one, I think we're good with that page. Next page is the street lights along Irving Park. You have seen this page a few times before. It was actually programmed in this year, but this was one of the projects that got pushed off due to COVID. So bringing it back next year. We did beef up the numbers a little bit because the numbers were stale dated a couple years. So Public Works did update the numbers a little bit. I think by about $40,000 from previous CIPs. And this again would be the black ornamental, like the spun aluminum poles, like what's in the intersection. And I believe this would be to replace the wooden poles along Irving Park, not any existing metal like IDOT poles.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
I actually called on this. I thought this project is going to be from the east end of town all the way to the west end of town, all street lights. Did I not understand correctly?
Mr. Wilson?
And how many lights was that? What was the number for 400,000?
Chairman, this is Director Lang. I can answer that.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Lang.
So this is to replace the aluminum poles along Irving Park Road from Pine Avenue to the Georgetown Shopping Center. 49 of the poles in total will be replaced with the black decorative poles. And then 32 of the existing luminaires around the Addison, Irving Park Road and Wooddale and Irving Park Road intersections will be replaced with upgraded LED models.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Mayor?
Yeah, no, I just because he just said the wood poles and I thought it was all the poles, all the aluminum.
Right.
And I just wanted to clarify and, I wanted to get the number out there because it's 400,000. So you got, what was it, 49 new poles and 32 lights or something.
Correct.
So just trying to, no
Well,
problem.
it was a good question. I was,
May I ask a question?
sure, go ahead, Alderman Wesley.
So this was slated for this coming 2022, right?
Correct.
So my suggestion is, to tell you the truth, I really think we should hold off on this until we see we actually are with this COVID thing. I mean, to commit $400,000 into streetlights, I think there's more other stuff that we need fixed before that.
Well, we'll be going over sorry, can I speak, Alderman Woods?
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Mayor.
So we're just setting the CIP up right now. And when we get to the budget, if the numbers from COVID were worse than expected or no impact at all, because don't forget, we did receive some CARES Act funding. So I'm not sure where we're going to end up and how our sales tax, but we'll be able to decide at the budget time. We could still, and that'll be coming up in a few weeks anyway. So if the numbers aren't there, this will probably be the first project pulled again.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you. Moving on, Police Department. This was another fiscal 21 project that got pushed back due to pandemic. So just some TLC for the inside of the police department. But I have to defer to the chief for more pointed questions to this. But again, this was a project that had gotten deferred from this year to next year due to the cuts we did for the COVID stuff.
That's another, sorry, that's another one we should look at the budget time.
Okay, well, that's what that process is for, so. Good. Mr. Wilson? Oh, sure. Go ahead, Alderman Jacob.
$12,000 design services. I mean, does it really cost that much to have somebody come in there and tell us what we need to do with the space?
I can answer that, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, go ahead, Director.
So yeah, that was for the original quote from an architect design, and because what we would likely be doing is redesigning, the unused radio room now and watch commander, that basically that whole side of the PD was going to be looked at for workflow and everything. So that was consultation and design of, if we had to change some walls out and do some other stuff.
Okay.
Alderman Jacob, follow up.
With the radio room, Greg, I know we still have all the equipment in there, don't we?
Chief?
No, we do not. We have some of the dispatch furniture, but we really only have one city computer in there that we use, and then the surveillance stuff is back in the closet. But I would defer to the IT director on the server room, but we wouldn't be disturbing that. But we are using that room right now due to COVID, just as an additional office space for one person. But before COVID, that room was not being really used at all. And once COVID is over, it's a lot of extra space that's not being used. And at the same time, we are completely full on our female locker rooms. So there may be some need at some point to even move the roll call room to the dispatch center and take over part of the old roll call room if we need to expand the female locker room. So there's a lot of things at play, and that's why we would want someone to assist us with structurally what would we have to do.
So all the equipment's gone from there? For some reason, I thought some of that equipment was still there.
No, none of the radio equipment is in there anymore. It was all with the consolidation and with the interoperable radio system. None of that stuff is operable.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Alderman Woods can be recognized.
Sure, go ahead.
Greg, so those, let me try this. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, now it's better.
Okay. Do those fees, are they for space plan design or are they for architectural design?
Chief, you want to answer that, or?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so it was to plan the spaces. We've already done some preliminary look in walking through with them, and we know what's load bearing and what isn't, but just some recommendations as to some of the non-load bearing things that could be removed and reorganized for that better workflow.
Thank you.
Mr. Woods?
Alderman Sismarski, go ahead.
Would it be, we can't change anything now in this CIP to change it, to give him money to just go ahead and, instead of doing it again, where you said he might need room for the women's locker room, not allocate this to something else, or just go ahead and get rid of this and
No,
make
this
it for
is
future expansion?
We got the budget coming up, if that's something you want to.
No, I just didn't know if we could do it here too.
Yeah.
I just asked, I just wanted to know. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, Mr. Wilson, go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gonna move on to the next COVID casualty from this year, was the PD HVAC system. They got pushed back. I think the HVAC system is probably, if possible, in worse shape than it was before we pushed it back. So I think this is a definite needs to happen next year. I know the chief, they've already worked on some preliminary cost estimates and whatnot, and I think this is a pretty close number, believe it or not. So that's all I got on this one.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Next.
Surveillance cameras. This was another one that was in for this year that got pushed back. But then with the continuing of the ERP and then the computer replacements and some of the other projects, it was decided to push this out an additional year into 23. I know I did speak to the chief about this real quick. So I guess if there's any questions about this, I would defer to him. But again, this was this year, and then with ERP and the computer replacements, just the load on IT, the decision was to push this out into 23.
Alderman Jacob, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, based on everything going on, and I mean, these are security cameras. I mean, I really think we should get this done. I mean, it's cameras. Where are the cameras going? It's for the bridge, the train station. I mean, with everything going on in the world, I mean, we've had, a few break-ins in Wooddale, as all the other suburbs are experiencing. I think the more cameras, the better. I mean, for safety. I mean,
Yeah. May I be recognized, Alderman Woods?
Sure. Go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Yeah, Alderman Jacob and I talked about this earlier. Even incorporating some type of plate readers into this. I mean, to us, or to us too, I believe this is critical. While we are relying on people's Ring doorbells, including my own, and cameras, we have to invest in this as well. For whatever reason, we've become a hotbed. So you think about the robbery at 7-Eleven, you think about a lot of the residential stuff that's happening. I'd also would like to see this bumped up and moved up.
Yeah. Well, again, at the budget, which is coming up, we can certainly jockey some things around and make that more robust in time to get it.
Can we
added into there.
Can we move that up to fiscal 2022?
yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it move to fiscal year 2022, and we could always move it back.
Mr. Wilson, is that a possibility?
If that's the consensus of those of you on the call tonight, then sure, I will move it over a column into 22.
Can we, straw poll, does the majority of the people?
One more
okay.
question before we answer that.
Go ahead.
What would the license, I know we talked about this a long time ago, the license plate reader on the bridge. I mean, I think that, I'm trying to figure out what the cost of that, because I think that would be very helpful to the city, the police department.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, Mayor, please go ahead.
So if council members want to see what this is, the manager and the staff usually have their unfunded pages, their expanded level items. The green sheets, the pink sheets.
Right.
We'll have that discussion at the budget. I mean.
Right. Just
Can
one
I-
question, Mr. Woods.
Sure, go ahead,
Sorry.
Alderman Smarsky.
Sorry to cut you off there, city manager. If we could have the chief go back, I know it was the LiDAR system, is that correct, Mayor? Chief? Is that the one with the cameras on the vehicles? All four corners, license plate reader?
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, so kind of two separate things. We were looking to add some surveillance cameras at key points in town that would allow for monitoring and playback. Just for information, were we to want to install stationary license plate readers that covers all lanes, let's say, of Irving Park at both entrances to Wooddale, you're talking about probably about $100,000 over a initial install and installation. And if you wanted to expand that north and south, obviously you just keep adding on to it. Elmhurst, they have pretty much blanketed their entire town now with these types of things, but they've also spent about $500,000 or $600,000 on that. So certainly we could do some additional studies. We have been in touch with these LPR companies to consider it because it is a good crime fighting tool and prevention tool, but it is costly. So that's just got to be kept in mind that if you wanted to catch both entrances on Irving Park Road, you're probably talking $90,000 to $100,000 in the first year.
Alderman Jacob?
Yeah, so, I mean, I would like to maybe take the poll to move this 40,000 to 2022. And then for Greg to look into that, because to me, $100,000, I mean, there's so many things going on in the world right now, so many new crimes going on. I mean, public safety is number one on the list. I mean, I really think even that would be, an idea, but I think we should definitely put this 40,000 to 2022 if we could take a poll on it.
Again, that goes in the budget.
It's unfunded. We're taking a vote to see if we can move it
Yeah,
in consideration of this upcoming budget. So that is what that's what we need to do, a roll call.
Can I chime in real quick?
Sure, go ahead, man.
Yeah.
Mr. Murphy.
I had talked to Director Case about this earlier, and not to prolong the conversation, which that's definitely not what I want to do for a $40,000 item. But if we do move this into 2022, as Director Wilson had stated, the reason it is in 2023 is not because we don't think it's important to have now. It's just because the workload of IT right now is a little heavy. And for something like this, it wouldn't be a true $40,000 if we moved it into fiscal year 2022. We would have some outsourcing work involved with that system then. So we would move it into 2022, but the price would probably go up a little. So it wouldn't be 40. I don't exactly know, and Nick doesn't exactly know what that new price would be, but the 40,000 is to do it internally. So when we outsource it a little by moving it up, it will be a little bit higher. So it's not going to be 40,
Can I be
it'll be a
recognized?
little bit more.
Alderman Messina, go ahead.
So, okay, I know this is a whole nother topic and I don't want to dive into this, but year in and year out, I ask if you guys need help, if there's help needed in IT. So if you're saying that we need this, and I know there's a lot on Nick's plate, I would ask you to come to the budget with headcount requests. Because if we try to outsource, we're just going to get hammered. And so I would rather get a long-term resource or a temporary hire that we can leverage, that we can use to help Nick through this hurdle, than continue to kind of push things off and just do business as usual. So can you please bring an alternative headcount request so that we can see the difference in cost?
Sure. Yeah, that was already on the radar. We've had many internal talks on this, and it's just not as simple as some may think it is. I'll let Nick chime in about the complexity of that. Again, I don't want to get too involved in this item tonight. More of a budgetary type.
Yeah,
item
I
is
was
what
going to
you're
say,
talking
that's
about.
really a budget thing, so.
That's all I asked. Bring it to budget.
Yeah,
That's
so
all.
we'll bring it to budget, we can have the debate there.
We were going to do that already anyway, so that is on our radar, and that was going to be brought up anyway.
Alderman Jacob, do you still have a question? You had your hand up.
What if we move this to 2022, it's still going to come up during the budget. I want to make sure this doesn't get forgotten. So.
Yeah, all I'm saying is we'll slide it in. It'll just be more than 40. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to try to clarify something. Everybody, I know it's come up a couple of times. We're going to talk about it during the budget. For the CIP, this is that conversation. This is the CIP budget. When we get to the budget on February 25th, we shouldn't theoretically be talking about the CIP because that's what we're doing tonight. So
that's why I said we should put it into.
So if we want to move this up tonight, that's fine. And then, we'll go back to, hang on here, so.
Let's go back to the city hall.
Yeah, if you go back to page 11, if we go back to page 11 real quick, let me just back to page 11. You see in 22, there's $490,000 ending cash balance. So if we move 40 or 50,000 up to account for some extra time, this number goes down to 440, 450. And then this number actually stays the same because it's a net zero. We're just moving one up and moving it over. So if we want to advance this up, there is cash flow in the first year to do that. And like I said, it's a net zero in year 2. So if we want to do that, that's fine. I just don't want people to expect in a month and a half that we're going to rehash this entire thing again, because that's the point of tonight, is to not have to have that conversation in 6
Can I
weeks.
make a
Well,
comment?
could you guys run some different, and I've asked for this.
We'll go through the
before.
chair.
Sorry, can I be recognized, Alderman
Sure,
Wood?
go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Can we look at that, right? So can we look at those different models of what that looks like, whether it's head count or whether it's a one-time capital expense that we have to make and what that impact looks like? Can you guys run scenario modeling in the software you have, Brad?
Chairman, could I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Case.
Can I get my question answered first, Alderman Woods?
Yeah, I was hoping to answer your question.
Okay.
I think Nick was going to take the question.
Yeah, so we cannot run modeling like that in the software. That would be something a little bit different. To answer your question, it would be manual modeling essentially.
Okay. Okay.
But just to, and if I can also continue.
Sure, go ahead.
So you had mentioned hiring extra staff and headcount, and that's not exactly what the city needs. What we more need is specialized consulting for things that would require more technical expertise than we would likely get on staff. So a consultant to come out who specializes in, let's say, firewalls, or specializes in security, or specializes in that, to kind of take some of that load off, because I'm almost willing to bet that if we add staff, it's going to cost significantly more. But on top of that, we're not going to get the specialized type of people that we need to assist with some of these projects.
Can I be recognized, Alderman Woods?
Go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Do you see some parallels in all these projects that you're juggling? Is there some parallel or some consistency where it might behoove us and be more beneficial to hire somebody as a temp with that niche, with that specialty, versus the consulting and all the, I'll call them because I draft them, the BS fees that come with it?
Mr. Case?
While I completely agree with you and the quote unquote BS fees, that specialization is necessary, and typically we only need them for small amounts of time on small projects, or even large projects, but small amounts of time, because I can handle most of it. If we were to kind of hire some kind of a temp, unless it's an agency that can rotate out specialization, because I'm sure, as you know, IT is very specialized now. So IT, you know, you get somebody whose entire job is security, or whose entire job is networking, etc. That's what we need, assistance in those areas, not necessarily the general break and fix. That's handled. It's just these projects that I would like to see a little more technical expertise, someone who specializes in that day in and day out, to assist on some of these projects. And that's where basically we have a budget line item that is professional services, and that's what I'd like to see increased come budget time.
That's, may I be recognized, Alderman Woods?
Sure, go ahead.
And you
Follow up.
mentioned, you said it, right? Is there a company, kind of like we did with HR Green, when when they were bringing in temps and different specialties to help us fill some gaps in the building department? Are those companies out there that we can do that? Were there, like you said, rotating temps with different specialties that we can bring in to help you assist, versus doing full-blown consulting engagements?
Mr. Case?
If not, then
So-
it's fine, but I just want to make sure that if there's an opportunity, I'd love to leverage it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely. Yes, there are. However, you're going to pay those quote unquote ridiculous fees anyway, based on the level of support we need. So I think it's fiscally better for the city to just use kind of a time and materials type, structure as we kind of get into some of these projects. And some of them extremely complicated ones may be better as an actual project conducted through them. But either way, a lot of on the IT side, the specializations are needed, and we're going to wind up paying that fee anyway. But from what I've seen and some of the research I've done and kind of calculated some of these projects that are coming up, if we were to hire staff that would have the capabilities of me, you're going to have to pay. And we're gonna wind up saving a little bit more money if we just have people come out a day here, a day there as we need them. And as the level of expertise we need is also the level that you pay for. So if we just need simple help, it might be significantly cheaper than if we need somebody who's really good at security or networking, if that makes sense.
That's it. I completely understand. Sorry, may I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead.
All I'm asking is if there's an opportunity as you scope these projects or build these SOWs, that if you see consistency in different projects, if you can, and I'm sure you will, have the vision to say, we need, whatever, networking, or we need security for these various projects that we have slated, it behooves us to pick up somebody on a temporary basis versus a consultant. That's it. But I'm sure you'll probably.
Mr. Woods?
So, trust you.
Alderman Jacob was first.
Yeah, so with all this in mind, and what Brad said, I mean, we're not gonna be discussing this at the budget, so again, I'd like to take this 40,000.
We are gonna, if you make this an expanded level item, you're gonna discuss it. The staff
Brad?
does it every year.
Brad just made the comment that we're not gonna discuss it.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
if there's a vote tonight, which that's where we're going to next, to move this 40,000 up from 23 to 22. We'll program it into 22. We'll add, I don't know, 5 or 10 grand for, for assistance. And then, if you want to bring up something in the CIP at the actual budget, we can certainly discuss it. The intent of having the CIP as its own meeting is to not bog down the operating budget with rehashing this a month later. So if this would not be an expanded level item, this would just simply be moving it up 1 year in the CIP and then completing the project next year. An expanded level item would be in the operating budget, would be a brand new project, such as a new IT person or expanded IT services. That's an expanded level item in the operating budget. This is simply moving a project from 1 year to the next via general direction from the council or the committee, as it were, tonight. Two completely different things.
Right.
Alderman.
No, we will, but we will
Alderman
be.
Jacob.
We
Go
will
ahead.
be talking about
We just
it.
vote on moving this over to 2022. I mean, if it
Hey,
fails-
Hang on. Mr. Murmas, what were you
Yeah,
saying?
I think I can just clear it up. We will be obviously bringing this back to committee for approval once the budget passes, as it's over $40,000. So we'll be able to talk cameras. Everybody wants to talk cameras when the time comes. All we're doing is moving it to 2022, and then it'll come back to committee once we have all the information.
Right, thank
May
you.
I?
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
So my question is, so we're gonna move this forward because Brad made a comment that we need to ballpark figure what we want. Well, then if I'm gonna move something back then in 2023, let's discuss that now too then.
I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
Eugene, get closer to the mic.
Can't hear you.
I'm just saying, if we wanna move this to move up to 2022, I
Can't hear
wanna
him.
move the City Hall project back to 2023. It should be all discussed at budget.
Okay, so let's take this one at a time. So, do we want to do, should we do a roll call, Manager Murmas, to move the 40, to move the money?
Yes.
To move
we
the
need-
40 and add 5.
Correct. Well, let's just move the project and. we'll
Okay,
kind of
all
vet
right,
out the
all
numbers.
right. So, who's gonna make, Randy, Peter, you want to make the motion to move it to?
I make the motion to move the 40,000 to fiscal year 2022.
Okay,
Second.
all right. So roll call?
Alderman Sorrentino,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Woods,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Catalano,
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Okay, consider that moved. Okay, so then, Alderman Wesley, you wanted to go back
So if we're going to start moving stuff to the capital projects, then I think we need to discuss about
Can't
the street
understand them.
station. And I was told that we were going to discuss
Your
that
line item for.
at budget time. Let's go back to the street lights install on Irving Park Road. We're going to start moving around. Let's move around now.
Okay, so which ones, stay close to the mic because we're losing you. Which one do
Okay,
you want?
I would like to see the police department push back, the police department improvement back, push back to 2023.
Okay,
I would
hang
like
on.
to see,
Let's take it one at a time. So,
Move your head away from the camera.
yeah,
There you go.
are you making a motion to do that?
yes,
Is there a second? This is to move the police department back 1 year.
Which item?
He wants to move all of it. Is that correct?
I want to move all the projects back from carpeting, design service, entering floor system, painting, lockup procedures.
And the
I want
heater?
to move that all back.
No,
So
just
26.
23.
whatever.
Hey, 26, I'll move back to 2023.
So you're making the motion. Is there a second? Okay, that fails. What's the next thing that you want to move?
Forget, because it's all going to fail. You guys just keep moving stuff up.
No. Bring the motion. What do you want? What's the next thing you want to look at?
I want the decorated streetlights moved back to 2023 then.
What page is that on?
Oh, it's the one. on the
25.
25, this Irving Park streetlights.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second for that? I'll second it.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have a motion, we have a second, roll call to move back the decorative streetlights on Irving from 22 to 23.
Alderman
call.
Sorrentino,
No.
Alderman Jacob,
No.
Alderman Woods,
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky,
No.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Catalano,
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
4-3.
That's 4-3. So that gets moved back, correct? For all those counting at home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moves into 2023.
Yep, all right. Alderman Wesley, was there anything else prior to this?
No, that's it. Go on.
All right, so Mr. Wilson, if you want to pick up, unless there's something else that anybody else wanted to bring up that we bypassed? All right, Mr. Wilson, can you pick up where we left off then?
Certainly. Just taking my notes here. So the next project, so just so we're clear, this was the surveillance cameras that we moved. So the next project is the Public Works building. So in the current CIP that we have programmed this all to be done in 1 year. Kind of looking at it from a cash flow standpoint and an operational standpoint, that really didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we split this up into 4 years. It might, once the design's done, it might wind up being 3. It might wind up being 4. Because there's some different phases, different staging, things of that nature. And so right now, we're doing some environmental stuff and then working with Williams on the loan design. And like I said, this would be the staging and the phasing to help the cash flow and then also minimize operational disruption.
Test.
You passed. Alderman Jacob, you have a question?
This 800,000, this is strictly for the architects? Brad?
Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's predominantly for the architects. There might be a little bit of the PM in there, but I believe mostly the architects, correct, Alan?
Yeah, correct. This is for the architects and their consultants, like the civil site engineering, the MEP engineers, and you're right, Brad, the construction manager who is going to assist with cost estimates.
Do we have a breakdown of those costs?
Not at this time. I don't have a detailed breakdown. Williams Architects, as Brad mentioned, is working on the conceptual design. And once they have completed those, they'll be bringing that for presentation at council, and we'll be looking towards getting an agreement in place with them for the final design documents, which we should have a little better breakdown of those costs.
Okay, so this is a placeholder for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a ballpark figure based on the percentage of the total estimated construction cost.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's all I had, so.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
That's all I had on this page, unless there was something.
All right, yeah, no, you move.
Okay. Moving on to the facade improvement program. I believe you're all familiar with what this program is. We did add just a listing of some of the past participants, in case people were curious or, wanted to have some talking points. Again, 150 seems to kind of be where we've hit the last couple of years. This year, I know the local, they got some, and there's some that might roll over to next year. Osty's got theirs. They might get some this year. Some's going to roll over. So, and looking at the numbers, it should balance out pretty well between the two. And, if anybody else comes forward, there would be some room available for them as well. So.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
So I know we just awarded the 128,000 a couple months ago, and you said local might still have some next year, and some from the 128,000 could come out of this year. I just want to make sure that if there's a business out there that comes up and they've got another really good project, that of course it's going to come to the council if we need additional funds, correct? We're not just going to say no, right?
Well, this money's still there, correct me if I'm wrong, right? We're plugging it in. The money that was local's been paid and.
But my question is, so if the one that was just awarded, the 128,000 and local comes in all next year's budget, and we have another business that wants to come in and maybe they need 50 or another 100.
Right.
We're not just going to say, no, sorry, you'll have to wait a year.
Well, I'm certain, I can't speak for everybody, although sometimes I like to, but I'm sure if it was a good project that we would find a way to get it done. I think most people.
That's the only comment I'm making. I just want to make sure that we don't just stonewall somebody just because we'll have to figure it out. So.
Right.
All right.
If I could be recognized, it's Ed Cage.
Sure, Mr. Cage, go ahead.
Good evening. Yes, to echo the mayor's point, some of these projects take longer to get the applications together, so they kind of spread out over a period of time. From my perspective, we try and work with the applicants to make it the best application possible. And certainly, even if it's an incomplete application, I know Gosha, I know myself work closely with the applicant. So the answer is there's no straight no. It's let's work together on the application, and then they come forward when they're full and they go to streetscape and do the process. So just to clarify.
That's all.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Mr. Wilson.
Sure. The only thing I would add is that if we were to get to that case, we would, certainly just put in the memo, just alerting the council to that. But yeah, I would tend to agree with Mr. Cage that we wouldn't deny somebody based on that. We, bring it forward and then have that conversation. So.
Right.
So if that's it, move on. The next page is the completion of the ERP project. I believe everything right now is slated to be live by believe it's April, but we know there's going to be some residual costs, license fees, things of that nature. They're going to roll over into next fiscal year. But as of right now, fingers crossed, everything should be live still within this fiscal year. That's the plan as of right now.
Good. Any questions? No? All right, next.
Quick question. Alderman Wood.
Oh, go ahead. Sure. Alderman Messina.
And I'm sure this was mentioned before, but it slipped my mind. Nick, what is the actual recurring maintenance cost that we should look forward to? About like 20% of these numbers?
So the recurring maintenance is going to be about $85,000 a year, give or take.
Of the full implementation of software?
About 85 grand is what we're expecting to be, is our reoccurring cost every year, depending on if I add other Tyler support and things like that, which we're likely going to need. We're looking at about $85,000 in reoccurring cost every year.
May I be recognized again?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Our total software purchase for this project, was it 500,000? Well, I can get up and look at my other previous CIPs. Was there any more besides the 500 in front of us?
Mr. Case?
Yes, there was. The total cost of the project is about 1.2 million.
I meant software. You're paying maintenance on software typically, correct?
Yeah, and that maintenance is going to be about $85,000 every year, which is up from 20 for Springbrook.
Like what is the total number? So if we're saying the software, if we're paying maintenance on software, is it 85,000 of 500,000, or is there another number? I don't have fiscal year 2020.
I don't think I follow what you're saying. Every year, the software renewal is going to cost the city $85,000 from here on out until we get rid of the software at some point.
Nick, he's saying what was the total cost of Munis itself? Just Tyler. What was the
Oh, just Munis? Let me pull that up. Hang on.
Thanks.
Can I ask you a quick question while we're waiting?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
So these fees, is this, when we say the fees, that's part of the all the licensing agreements, I take it?
The maintenance is typically called like support, basically, is what you're paying for, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick.
Can I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Director Case.
Thank you. So here's what we've got. For the licensing alone, it's $222,806, which was discounted from $444,175. The implementation services on ERP were $474,770. There's some third-party expenses as well that are about $7,000, and consulting services were $167. So we're looking at $85,000 for both licensing every year as well as support and maintenance. So there is a support function to it, but we also have to relicense the software every year.
That answered my question, because if it was just support that we were paying 85,000, I would have major questions.
So the support on that is about $10,000 a year for just the support on all the modules, which are 5 different more than 5, but 5 phases of modules.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay, that's what I was concerned about. I thought it was $85,000 of support costs on just for support, but you're saying that includes the licensing.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it might
look
actually, oh, I'm sorry. Can I?
Please.
Go ahead, Director.
So the 85,000 is what we anticipate for reoccurring licensing. There may be an extra $10,000 for support services as well, but we need to work the numbers once ERP is completed.
Can I be recognized?
Go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Can you, and maybe Brad will correct me, but can you bring to council, is there a way to get a proposal for like a 3-year agreement where maybe there's a flat uplift year over year? So I'm guessing that 10K or that 85,000 won't be consistent year over year. I imagine there's going to be an uplift every year. Is that accurate to say?
Director Case?
So yes, that is correct. I believe in the, I'd have to pull up the, oh, actually I have it right here. So there's going to be no more than a 3% per year increase on maintenance for the first 5 years. Then after that, we can renegotiate the cost of maintenance, but are guaranteed an increase not greater than year 6, 5%, year 7, 6%, year 8, 7%, and 9 and 10, 8%. After that, it will never go over 5%.
I have a follow-up.
Go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Okay. So 3% is what we've negotiated, or is that just kind of a given?
That it's a mix. So typically, it's what we negotiated. So typically it would have been 3% to 5% to 6 to 7 to 8, and it stays at 8. But when we took on this project 2 years ago, we negotiated that we will not have more than a 3% increase for the first 5 years.
Great. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Mayor, did you, we got your question, right?
Yeah, that's
Answered. Yep. All right.
be the relicensing, no problem.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Wilson, if you'd like to move along.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to O'Hare Noise. This is monies that the city contributes to SOC, and then if there's any extra consultants, I think the last few years, was it JDA or whoever they had for the flight quiet stuff. So those monies came out of here. So this would be for any continued efforts to that, and then monies to SOC itself would come out of here.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
So there was a SOC meeting this week, and we're going to continue with JDA, and it'd be a smaller contract than the previous ones. But we'll probably end up putting in another 5,000 at some point.
Okay. Alderman Jacob, you have a question?
Yeah, just, yeah, I see for in 2021, it was 15 and now it's gone up to 25 through 2026. Did we already know that there's an increase for SOC or increase for something, or was that we're just kind of estimating that there's going to be an increase?
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, so I believe if you look in prior CIPs, this number was actually higher, so we've been bringing it down. Not knowing what's coming with the JDA contract, I know the mayor just said another 5,000. So I think, you know, this like the 10 to 15 is kind of like the rolling costs, but then not knowing what would come up with these extra studies and whatever, we just wanted to give ourselves a little bit of padding, you know, for the JDA stuff or some other consultants that might come up.
Okay.
You know, we could
Thank
probably
you.
push this to 20, but just not knowing what's out there with the new runaway just coming online and whatnot, we wanted to leave it at this number. So
Yeah, answer my, thank you. Perfect.
All right. Mr. Wilson, next.
Sure. Moving on, treatment plant Veterans Memorial. As you all know, by way of the cover on the book, the medallions were put in, which was this 39,000. And then you may recall that there was a rejected bid for lighting and some other things. So I know Public Works are looking into the lighting and then also some landscaping options with, I believe it's HR Green. So we did, previous budgets had 50,000 for here. So we did bump this up a little bit more to account for some of the potential challenges in the lighting, electrical work, and making sure the landscaping is kind of what we want it to be out there. So have 75,000 in for next year for some of the electrical stuff and then the landscaping at the Veterans Memorial by the treatment plant.
Nice. Okay, next.
So flood property buyout. You probably have read this in the manager's report that it looks like we're getting close to some monies on the flood property buyout. Typically, it will be a 75-25, but my understanding is that this funding would actually be at 100% for the properties. And it looks like, again, based on what's been in the manager's report, we're looking at about 1.1 million to acquire some properties. I know this was in unfunded last year as we're kind of waiting for this process to work its way through. And as it looks like it's getting closer to the finish line, this got bumped up into the funded section. Sidebar, if the funding doesn't come through, the city is, I don't believe there's any intention to spend the $1.1 million out of our own pockets. So as you notice in the funding section, it would be from the grant funding. It's some combination. I'm not completely sure if it's, IEMA or IDNR at this point, or a combination thereof. But that's where that's at right now. Unless the manager has an update, I think we're still kind of waiting on the final word. But that's where this is heading.
No update. You pretty much summarized.
Okay, next.
Okay. Rear yard drainage program. Again, we've been budgeting 24,000. The max is up to $3,000 at the 50-50 cost share. So this would provide a maximum of 8 properties. I believe a couple list of bills ago, there were 3 on there, and I know there's another one on this upcoming list of bills. So I believe that puts it at 5 this year that took advantage of it. So it's been pretty popular lately, and I think it's working as designed so far. So
Good.
Hey, Brad?
Alderman Jacob.
Do we know what the average cost is? I mean, just on the ones that we have, do we have like an average cost for a project, or it's been all over?
About 6,000, 7,000.
This is Director Lang. I can answer that.
Go ahead, Director.
A typical range would be between 1,500 and the full 3,000. I'd say that a majority of the projects utilize that full $3,000 reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Next.
Sure. This is one that Alderman Wesley had asked about earlier in the evening, the Metro lot.
Yes.
So this 200,000 here in fiscal 22, new decorative poles to match the city street signs, the black poles that were put up a couple of years ago, updated signage in the lots, and then there's the narrow strips of grass in a couple spots, replace that with stamped concrete and other landscaping and aesthetic updates. Last year, if you looked at the sheet, it was 1 year and a little bit lower total cost. Director Lang says they were kind of going through and looking at the lot. It appears that it's going to need, full grind and overlay in the near future. So we did push that out a couple of years and decided not to restripe it next year, only to tear it up in 2 years. Obviously, if there's some areas that require a little more TLC, we'd hit those, but not going to restripe the entire lot to just grind it up, 1 to 2 years later.
Any questions? No. All right, next.
I have a question.
Sure, Mayor, go ahead.
So we're removing the strips of grass down that center line or whatever with stamped concrete. What is the lot coverage? Are we exceeding lot coverage or anything? Is the city going to need a variance for stormwater? Because I want to make sure that we're following the same rules that everybody else has to.
This is Director Lang. Just early measurements, it doesn't seem that there'll be enough square footage of disturbed pervious surface to trigger those stormwater requirements. But if so, we will certainly follow all city and DuPage County stormwater ordinances as we do on other projects.
Thank you.
So while we're on it, how many trees are left over there, or will the trees all be gone?
There are a number of trees that are in somewhat decline. They're having some dieback, maybe some selective pruning. We can help some recover, but there might be a couple that need to be replaced, which we'll look to do either with this portion coming up this year or with the parking lot resurfacing.
All right, I would like to see that done. Thanks.
Alderman Woods.
Go ahead, Alderman Jacob.
One thing I wanted to ask Director Lang and maybe all of us to consider, Seeing that right now with COVID, not that many people are using the train station, would it make sense to switch that 400, put that into 22 and do the parking lot now since there's not that many people using it? Because putting lights at inconvenience to many people, putting the 200,000 to, just switching those. A lot of people using the lot right now, and we know COVID's going to be around to at least the end of the year, if not a little longer. Just thinking as far as people using the lot, I mean, how many people it's going to inconvenience?
That takes away 4 years of the life cycle.
Yep. That's a fair point. This is Director Lang, and I'll defer to the council on this matter. But Alderman Woods brings up a fair point about the life cycle of the pavement and wanting to extend that as much as possible. But certainly the council can give whatever direction it chooses.
When is the last, Alderman Woods?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Jacob.
When is the last time we did a full surface and regrind over there?
I would actually defer to maybe Director Wilson or City Manager Murmas on that. I don't have the year sitting right in front of me, and maybe their memory they can recall.
We did that one right after we did the city's parking lot, if I remember correctly. So it's 8-9 years ago.
Yes, it was the same contract. 2012 sticks in my head, but it was the same.
Yeah, there I was, 8 years. Pretty good memory for an old guy. So to get another 4 years out of it, right? And if you think about it, so you reduce that one by 4 years, you put a new one in, which is going to last the 8 or 10 years, and we're going to be doing that one 4 years sooner than we would have to.
Okay. If I could just, like I said, I was just bringing it up. Just
yeah, no, it was a good idea.
Convenience.
From
I was just
logistics.
thinking convenience with
nobody
using the train station right now. So that's the only reason I even brought it up.
All right. Any other questions? No. Next, Mr. Wilson.
Sure. This one, senior grass cutting program. I know this was discussed, was it a month and a half ago at committee, and it was for 200 participants, and this was the number, this 18,750 that was in the memo. So that was lifted directly from there, and then so it's pretty much the project language was lifted from that committee memo, placed in here based upon the conversation at that committee meeting.
Put something on.
Any questions? Nope.
No.
Okay. Moving on, Irving Park Road land acquisition. The title's perhaps slightly misleading because we've already acquired a good number of parcels on Irving Park. And so in these 2 years, Itasca Bank was nice in letting us defer the repayment of the principal for a while. But we're to the point now that we are going to have to pay down the principal on the line of credit. This was one where I said if those properties or other city-owned properties were to get sold, I believe the direction of the council would be to use those monies to pay this down or pay this off. So
correct.
Ones that is likely going to get funded through that. But again, as we haven't sold any as of today, this is how this sheet is going to play out again based on today. So, but subject to change based on future transactions.
All right. Excellent. Next.
So that's it for the general side. Moving into the water and sewer side, a little more exciting, like I said, in the out years. The first few years, some general maintenance. We'll get to the project sheets, but just general maintenance, north plant, south plant. This master plan is really a big one. And then the tap-on program, and then the I&I. So we'll just move on to the project sheets here. So the South Treatment Plant, as you all are aware, needs a more comprehensive rehab. But in speaking with Brett and Alan, they think they can, make it last for a few more years with some
Tender loving care.
pointed work. Yeah, some TLC and pointed.
what?
Windex and duct tape.
Um,
Go ahead.
Sorry, what was that? I'm sorry, did I miss you?
No. Okay. So, and then you'll notice in here, the middle here, initially the city had, we were going to do kind of a sinking fund to put some money aside to help defray the costs out in fiscal 26, give or take, for this. But with the I&I work that's being done over in Ward 4, kind of absorb all of that money that we were going to set aside. So we might, to do the South Plant, be looking at a similar funding methodology as North Plant. So just giving everybody a heads up on that a few years early. So.
Okay.
North Plant's in pretty good shape, but there's always, things that come up. So just put 25,000 in here. Looks like just some valve replacements, and then anything unforeseen that would come up. But that's really all that Brett and you guys have identified at this point for North Plant. So.
Okay, next.
I have a question.
Oh, Mayor, please.
Yeah, so when we talk about maintenance for the North Treatment Plant, when we were building the new plant and we emptied those aeration tanks and we found all the sludge on the bottom, is that now part of our normal maintenance on this plant?
This is Director Lang. I'm actually going to let Assistant Director Gorelli answer that. This is his area of expertise.
Nice.
Permission to speak, please?
Go ahead.
So basically what goes on is, there's the aeration plates. The grit doesn't settle over the plates because of the air, but it builds up during dry periods, in between the areas in the plates. And then when we get a big storm, it flushes out, and it's kind of an ebb and flow where it goes in, gets flushed out, goes in, gets flushed out. It really doesn't cost any issues unless we're going to do construction where someone would have to get down and work and it's in the way. And from what people have filled me in, this was before my time, but we had all that in there and we didn't have a bid item for it. And we paid probably a little higher price due to that was an extra, but it's a natural process for the grit to go in and out. The velocities through there are less when it's low flow, it tends to build. Then we get a big rainstorm, flushes it out. Am I making any sense, sir?
Yeah, well, you're making sense. I think that I thought that there at least was an issue that the prior tank design didn't lend itself to doing that process that you're just describing, as well as the new system, new tanks.
That's possible. I'm not familiar with the old design.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Alderman Eugene Mosley, go ahead.
So, Mayor, I remember that thing that we talked about, that they were supposed to drop one of those tanks and clean the bottom of those tanks yearly or something, because we ended up paying a lot more money to clean those tanks out. I thought there was a... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
This is Director Lang. As Brett and I had discussed, the new tanks at North Plant now, after the plant rehabilitation, use a vortex style grit separator, which is much more efficient than the old model, which the previous plant had used. So it's not nearly as much of a concern as it was in the past. And as Brett mentioned, there's kind of a natural cycle of flows there that helps to kind of clean out some of that grit that gets accumulated. And as we're not planning any repairs to North Plant, it's not really much an area of concern at the moment. However, when we go to do the rehabilitation of South Plant, we'll be sure that we spec out the same vortex style system that is used at North Plant and include a bid price to have that grit removed within the contract.
Can I have a follow-up?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
The only reason I bring it up is because when we found out about this issue and I spoke to the director at that time, and he basically said, well, you know, it's a funding issue and certain things and things like that. I told Mr. Kittleson, I go, well, honestly, if you bring things like that forward, that things have to be done, I would be pushing for it. So I want to just make sure that, you know, staff is not worried about bringing something to the council that should be taken care of. That's all I want to make sure. We spent a lot of money on that plant. We want it to last for the next 70 years.
I think with the expansion, we eliminated, one of the other issues they had was they couldn't take that thing down totally to be able to clean it out. I think that was the secondary reason. Right.
The clarifiers couldn't be taken down because they were interconnected, but now they're all separate.
Right. That's why I say the system, I didn't have all the fancy vortex, flux, capacitor terminology, but I knew that the new engineering design led itself to the self-cleaning process, if you will, more so than the old system did.
Right. This was the aeration tanks. Then you got the digesters, and then you got the clarifiers that were connected, right? I know we made upgrades, but I just want to make sure the staff knows that if something needs to be done, we need to know so we can take care of things properly. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Mr. Wilson, moving right along.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So next page is lift station rehabilitation program. As you're should be aware, we just finished the Royal Oaks lift station. Going to take a year off, then to start the design on the Ash lift station, and then after that, Orchard and Pine. So these costs were designed based upon kind of the cost for what the Royal Oaks one was. Obviously, each lift station is different, has their own costs and challenges, but again, based on what we experienced with the last one, that's kind of how these costs were derived for this sheet.
Okay. Any questions? Nope. Next.
So this sheet is probably one of my favorite ones in the CIP this year. You'll see in here $100,000 for a water system analysis. The concept behind that is to do this kind of like the stormwater master plan, like the streets efficiency study, to go through and analyze the entire potable water system and see where there's opportunities for improvement, where the potential weak points in the system are. Also would dive an analysis on the mayor's favorite project, the water tower, and would take into account the impact that a potential project next door to City Hall would have, the potential impact of annexing a large number of acres into town and putting big boxes on those, and other redevelopment within the TIF. So this study, really this sheet, really a lot of these 400,000s here are truly just placeholders to just get some numbers in there until this water system analysis is done. And then that's really going to drive and dictate these future years. Again, just like the stormwater master plan and the streets efficiency study would do. And if we go to the next page, these are already some items that is aware of needing to work on it and get a better handle on. And that study would help do that for us.
Question?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
Brad, this also takes into well repairs and things like that. I mean, I know we have 3 operating wells, I believe. And before we start getting questions from residents, why don't we just open up the wells and use those? We don't have enough capacity to service the entire community. Because I hear that once in a while, but we do have 3 operating wells that we do take care of. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is Director Lang. That is correct. We have 3 wells which serve as emergency backup for our potable water system. But you're correct, Mayor, they would not be enough to supply the town for an extended period of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Next.
For the infrastructure tap-on program, can't believe you're all familiar with this. Reimbursing the residents for a one-time credit of not to exceed $5,000 towards the tap of tapping onto city water or sewer or sewer. Again, we get a few of these a year. There are, a decent number of, I think there's 145, might be a little bit lower now after the last couple tap-ons, but the number is whittling away every year. So we budgeted this for 10 properties a year. Like I said, it looks like we've been at 3 or 4 realistically the last few years, but we're still optimistic that, we might get the 10 in one of the coming years.
Nice. Next.
Sure. Yeah, so the I&I program, this in previous years had been, I believe, closer to 350 to 400,000. And Mr. Gorelli can speak about this a lot more eloquently than I can. But when they got over into the Ward 4 I&I studies, they found it to be in far shape than we or they had anticipated. And so at least RJN has estimated that the next 3 years are going to be pretty much on par with what the final project cost was of this year, which was a little over $700,000. So speaking with Mr. Grilli and Mr. Lang, we did program that in there. As I previously mentioned, we had really done about 350, so that excess funding was going to kind of go into a little bit of a sinking fund for the south plant, but based upon the condition of the Ward 4 I&I, the sewer lines over there, this money had to get dropped in to remedy that situation.
I have a question.
Mayor, please, go ahead.
Okay, so I noticed we're doing more and it's areas 6 and 7. I know in the past we were starting, I think we were going to area 3 and area 1 wasn't 100% complete and area 2 was still maybe half done. Are we done with phases 1 through 5, complete everything? Just out of curiosity.
Mr. Wilson? Or Mr. Lang, whoever wants to take that.
This is Director Lang. I can take that.
Go ahead.
So the areas are not so much phases as they are just identifiable areas. So there's 7 areas in total, and 4 of them have been completed to date. There's 2 identified as future study areas, and we are working in the current study area, which is residential area of Ward 4. And we're continuing to televise that and have RJN review the tapes to continue to design improvements to that area.
Okay. So can I follow up?
Sure, go ahead, Mayor.
So the ones that we've already started, those first 4 sections, those are fully complete or there's still some work to be done?
No, those are fully complete.
Good, nice, thank you.
All right, nice. No other questions? Next.
I believe that is actually the last project sheet of the funded part of the CIP. So going forward, looking at these unfunded projects, and they all have a project sheet, obviously. We'll just move on to the project sheets. The Pine Lane extension. This is between, so it would extend Pine between Arbor and Dunlay. Right now, it's I don't know, some combination of grass and trees. There are lots on the west side of Pine that could, in theory, be developed if there were a street there. But again, right now, there's not a street there. One point to note is at the corners of what would be Pine and Arbor and Pine and Dunlay, looks like community development has received some proposals for new homes there. And so they're going to do the sidewalk along Arbor and along Dunlay. And then if the houses go to construction, we are going to take an escrow for the installation of the sidewalk along what would be, because there was some concern that if they put it in, if when Pine is constructed, if there's grading issues or whatnot, then they'd have to rip it out and redo it, which didn't seem really like that good of an idea. So we're working through the idea of just collecting an escrow, inflating it a couple years on a construction cost inflator, and then getting that. So if the street gets put in within the next couple of years, we would have the money for the sidewalk. That way the resident isn't having to do it on their own, because we would already have that money escrowed in the city's coffers for that. So this is something that's going to become, perhaps more conversation on, but just giving you guys a heads up that that's kind of what's out there, and that's how we're handling it. If somebody asks about the sidewalk on the what would be the west side of those properties, but the east side of what would be Pine Lane out there.
May I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Messina.
I think just commentary, it sounds like it's a wait and see. I know there's some other issues with tap-in fees, which I think staff is working through, hopefully still. It's good to see that one of the lots is finally being developed, but I agree. I want to keep this unfunded, but hopefully we can finally do something to nudge development on these last few lots because they are unincorporated and they are causing major problems for our residents surrounding that area, whether that be deforestation, dumping, etc. The answer of not our problem, it's county's problem is not gonna hold for much longer. Alderman Jacob and I we don't have any more ass to be chewed, I guess is the best way to say it. So I hope there's a push and an incentive we can do to try to get these remaining unincorporated lots developed one way or another.
How many of those lots are unincorporated over there?
2, correct? Mr. Cage?
3 or 4.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is Director Cage.
Go ahead, Director Cage.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so we have the 2 lots that Mr. Wilson mentioned. We have another individual that we're talking to about incorporating another lot, so that would be potentially 3, and then there's another 5 or 6. So it's, there's some opportunities there. We're seeing some interest, and I think to Alderman Messina's point, really, from our standpoint, if it's incorporated, obviously we have, it's within our purview. Obviously, any code enforcement issues or anything else we can take care of when it's in the county. And I think we all know this from various properties around town, Deer Path, etc. When it's not incorporated, those are the ones we have problems with. So
right,
this is a good opportunity. I appreciate the fact that we're discussing it, because I think at some point, if the road goes in, that's going to spur the economic development, the new single family homes, and take care of some of the issues that Alderman Messina and Alderman Jacob are hearing about and having.
I have a question.
sure, go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, so the 750 is really to develop, sounds like almost 7 to 9 lots, right? Not 3 or 4.
Correct, in that region, yes.
Okay, so I'm just curious if staff at some point, 7 to 9 lots, permit fees and all that stuff. Naturally, there's a real estate tax, and then of course we get motor fuel tax and income tax based on population. So that all adds in, use of water. I'm just curious, not for a meeting discussion, but little informational, just a quick synopsis. 9 homes, figure 27, 30 people. It's all, just curious what the numbers would be, see how fast we can make up that 750.
Sure. can I be recognized, Chairman?
Sure, go ahead, Director.
Yeah, excellent point, Mayor. I think that's something, yeah, I can put together just to kind of get us close. Really, the key is going to be, is the 750 the real number for the street? Obviously, we won't be there with permit fees, etc., but it does add up. So yeah, I will put that on my list, and I think that'll be interesting to kind of come up with that number to see what the impact is. So good idea.
Can I
So-
be heard?
Yeah, well, once, Director, so are they getting the permit out of Wooddale? Are they annexing in and then getting the permit, or are they like some other people, the ones on Wooddale Road, they go through the county because they're more lenient with the permit and then annex later? Are they getting the permits through us? That's the short question.
Yeah, so Chairman, to answer your question, the two that Mr. Wilson mentioned are incorporated.
Okay.
The most recent one on, I believe it's Pine, was incorporated. The new house went up there. They did get the incentive to annex, and then obviously so to answer your question, yes, they are annexing and getting permits through us.
All right, excellent.
Alderman
Alderman Jacob.
Yeah, so, I mean, one thing, and I'm not, Ed, I'm not sure, because the problems we're having with some of those properties cutting down trees or anything, they're not annexing in until they do all that and we get all the complaints, and so they're really going through the county. They're not going through us on anything until they're all done with all that work. Is that correct?
That is thank you, Chairman. Yeah, that is correct. They're removing the trees before they incorporate, so they effectively don't have to deal with us, and they deal with
Bypass our tree ordinance. Yep.
Alderman Woods.
Yeah, Alderman Sismarski, you had a
Mayor, at
question?
the same, Mayor, at the same time, remember what they just said. Any kind of inconvenience or land ordinance or change in that, I'm not throwing away almost $1 million worth of road to have it, throw in $1 million to have it torn up. You were asking to find out how much we could charge it, how much we could find a fate, put it in.
Follow up, just to follow up.
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, so what I said was, if you're gonna put in, I thought it was 2 to 4 homes, but now I hear 7 to 9. So 7 to 9 homes, you put in the road. Each house, you gotta figure is gonna be close to 10,000 in permit fees, so let's call it 80,000. Another $600 in city taxes for real estate taxes, right? So it's another 5,000 a year. They're gonna be buying water. We also make money per capita on residents, correct? So what is that? We get money for motor fuel and income, the LGDF. So we get so much per year. I'm just curious as to, I'm thinking maybe we end up the first year because of the permits, you might end up at 100,000, but it might only be 50,000 per year after that. And then the question becomes, so it's a math number, right? You spend 750, the first year you get 100 back, and you start getting 50 or maybe 100,000 per year with the income tax, motor fuel tax, water, sale of water and sewer and everything. So, and the real estate tax, of course, is probably going to be the biggest number, right? That's $600 to $700 per home, I would imagine, in that area. No, just looking at the homes over there, they're probably around 9,000 to 10,000 taxes.
12 to 14 noons.
Yeah.
More than that.
Okay, so I'm underestimating. What do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, quite a bit.
That's why I asked for the number, just so we could see. You know what? It might be worth it and be in our best interest to get that project moving and get it started.
Alderman Sismarski?
Yeah, not a short rebuttal, man. I'm not trying to kick it out or nothing. I'm just trying to say, think of the cost, 750 plus destroying that street with heavy equipment coming through, building more homes. I'd rather see some other kind of way of putting a temporary road in, not a full-blown road that's going to be destroyed until they get all the homes built, or commitment at least half 50%.
They're gonna do gravel until they build the road. They'll put the binder down and then they'll do the final lift when they're done.
So, well, it's not happening
That's
tomorrow,
all.
so we can
Yeah,
stop
all right,
debating that.
I'm done.
Alderman Jacob?
Yeah, two questions. One for Director Cage. If we were to put the street through, do we already own that land? I know there's several lots over there. What do we own the lot that would go straight through?
Director Cage?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I know there's an existing right-of-way. I want to double check the county records, but I believe there is an existing right-of-way there, yes.
Okay, follow up?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Jacob.
And I mean, would it behoove us to annex these properties all into Wooddale? So
You can't.
Yep.
Director Cage, do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So what's occurring at the moment is that obviously we have interest in the area. It's a nice area for a new single-family home. We're seeing people purchase the lots and voluntary annex, which I know that was the direction from the city council that we were going to go that route. The other route is, kind of the forced annex, which is, that's a Pat Bond question. Takes some time, but I think really if I like the mayor's idea of putting together some kind of a rough cost analysis. I think that helps us make a decision. But I think realistically, if we're going to move forward at a future date with the road, obviously that's going to spur the development right there, which leads to the annexations. Thank you.
So go ahead, Alderman
just
Jacob.
one follow-up. I mean, the thing I'm trying to avoid is all the problems we're having there. We have all those residents there that are paying all those high taxes, and they have to look at trees being cut down, and once they're cut down, there's weeds over there that are 6 foot tall. And I mean, we have residents over there that are calling us, people on the street on the other side of them, people on Arbor Lane. So you have people there that are upset that, they're paying all these taxes, and we're just letting, they feel that we're just letting these people do whatever they want to do. And they are, because they're unincorporated. So, and DuPage County doesn't enforce anything.
The Route
Edison
83.
Township. Call
Basically,
Edison Township.
It's not the township. It's the county. We've had them out there already.
Yeah, we've had county out there, and it doesn't seem to be helping.
Okay.
I wonder if.
So I'll throw a wrinkle in. Do we need to have that street go through to build any of the other houses?
You could build 2 without the street going through, another 2.
The majority of them are in what would be you couldn't get to them otherwise.
You couldn't get to them otherwise? Okay.
Right.
All right, excellent. All right, well, we covered that. So moving forward.
Sure. So intersection of Oak Meadows and Edgewood. I know this has come up a few times. I believe this project is some additional parking. I think it's along Oak Meadows. I know.
Alderman Woods, can I be recognized?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Messina.
So this is a project that Alderman Jacob and I have brought forward. The chief actually was, he had been looking at this for quite a while. Actually, this is something that the chief has been looking at for over a year. I believe he met with one of our engineers. I'll let him speak to that. But really trying to find a spot on Oak Meadows where some of those homes that are part of Wooddale that are on Oak Meadows really, really struggle to find parking. We have a retention pond there that, which we never thought about, but the chief or the engineers were smart enough to figure out maybe that was a spot where we could carve out a few more spots, because we get a lot of complaints. And what's happening there is, and albeit we could all say the same thing like we say with the O'Harenois, right? They chose to live on a busy street, so be it. But what they're doing when there's a lot of companies, they're parking on the grass, they're parking sideways, they're parking on Edgewood into the subdivision across the way. And so net for $40,000, it would solve a longstanding problem for those folks that live on Oak Meadows.
Alderman Woods, can I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Jacob.
So just to add to what Alderman Messina said, Right now, there is like a turning lane there, and several years ago, there was problems with the turning lane that the city council, I believe this was prior to me being on council, decided to make it no parking because it's too close to the street. And when we talked to Greg about this, because people are saying, well, now you guys took away spaces that we can't even park. So this is actually in a spot where it wouldn't affect the people turning. And we own the retention pond there, so it'd be right in front of the retention pond. And maybe Greg could speak on that, but Greg was out there. We met Greg out there one time with, I believe, Alan.
Mr. Chairman, I can address this.
Sure, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, so
Chief.
several years ago, based on problems with cars emerging off of Edgewood on Oak Meadows, we had the engineer review that intersection, and they did make the recommendation that there would be no parking within a certain number of feet towards that intersection to prevent accidents coming out of there. So that's the history of it. And then, yeah, we did work with Robinson Engineering to review a little bit further east of where the current shoulder is, that parking is not allowed, that you could add maybe 3 or 4 spots over there with this, estimated cost of up to $40,000. What obviously that would have to be worked out is we don't want people parking there overnight, and so this wouldn't be in contrast with that. But for when they have guests over or during the day, and this would not be close to the intersection, so it wouldn't be a danger for collisions. So that's where we're at with it. I'd be happy to take any other questions.
Yeah, through the chair, Alderman Woods.
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Smarsky.
Yeah, I think when the mayor was on here, I think Eugene was here, and so was Alderman Woods, and Joe Coles had brought this up years ago about that intersection. I was quite adamant about that whole. I remember that quite vividly. How there was an accident there, and that's why he never wanted anything changed, or that's why we never changed anything. We never allowed any parking. So before we go through that, Oak Meadows isn't our street anyway, is it? Is it in a county road?
It's a split between, because we have another individual on Oak Meadows. It's always has a different issue. It's part township, part county, part Wooddale.
Listen to the chief. I'd rather see another traffic study come through, because I don't want anybody opening a door, stepping out of a car into kids. Kids are notorious for speeding down that road. I've done it as a child. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to lie. That road there's a long stretch and one stop sign.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
before you put anybody in danger, I'd rather see a study done to see what happens down there. If it happens, fine. I'm fine with it.
Chief, you want to address that?
Yeah, definitely. We did discuss some of this already with the engineer, and certainly before any project would be approved, they would have to sign off the fact that, it is a safe, that the shoulder would be wide enough. Much of this area that would be paved it looks to be city property, but we would obviously have to coordinate with county because it's adjacent to their roadway. But all that would have to be done as a part of this project, and we certainly would not do it without the engineer saying that it was safe.
No, just safety is what I'm looking for. Sorry, thank you.
May I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Yeah, absolutely valid point. One thing that we've gotten over and over and over, and I've said this to folks before, is that little stretch there of, call it 4 or 5 Wooddale residents. I mean, they feel like they've never gotten the love up until recent. We've tried to show them love, which we have. And then the other is, they get their streets plowed. So they are still paying their due diligence. They're paying their monies to the city, that percentage. But essentially their streets are being plowed by, I think now it's the township. It goes between the township and the county. So it's not like we're really expending much on these folks. This, I feel, is a very, very small price to pay to show these guys love, because other than that, we really, truly don't give them much attention on that side. Again, this is homes on the south side of Oak Meadows. If you didn't know better, you would think you're in Addison, but it is Wooddale.
Can I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Catalano.
Yeah, has anybody approached the township and the county to see if they'll split the cost? I mean, due to safety issues? That's my question.
Mr.
Come in.
Chairman, I can address that.
Did somebody have a answer? Right?
Mr. Chairman, I can address that.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, we have not approached them yet. That would be a part of the process of if this at some point is put into the budget, then we would have to be in contact with them and reaching out with them. And it certainly doesn't hurt to ask. So we'll put the ask in for any assistance on it too.
Okay, thanks.
Alderman Woods.
Alderman Jacob?
I mean, I'd like to make a motion to put this 40,000 into 2022 with the city looking into seeing if the county would help us, and nothing would happen if the engineer doesn't think it would be safe.
Second.
In the form of motion, Mr. Jacob.
Essentially, all we're asking is for them to bring it, to move it to funded, to bring further
funding, and then we.
So let me ask, Greg, is this something you think you can get accomplished next year for 2022?
Well, yeah, I can address that. So I would have to probably defer part of that to Director Lang. The PD kind of headed up some of these, some of the initial work on this because we were involved with the engineer in prohibiting parking in a certain area, but I would have to, I'm not going to put on my construction manager hat. I'd do my best, but I would have to defer to Public Works if.
All right. Director Lang, do you have any input you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll just say from a construction standpoint, there's no issue with getting it completed this year. However, getting the county or the township to participate, I think would be a long shot as these properties.
I agree, that'd be a stretch. All right, so we have a motion to a second to move it to fiscal year 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. All right, roll call. We had a motion and a second already, so roll call.
Alderman Sorrentino,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Woods,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
No.
Alderman Catalano,
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. So moving right along, Mr. Wilson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Community Park at Town Center, this is one that's been out there for a while, so some in different iterations. I think at this point, need to see what happens next door, and then we also need for the Public Works building to be completed to vacate the property on commercial. So this is out there, but not something that I would foresee happening anytime.
Yeah, I think we need to move a few more pieces in the puzzle to get that one going.
Yeah, correct. Just want to keep it on the radar, but yeah, I would definitely agree with that assessment. Yeah.
All right.
The Ash Street transformer. Again, this is in there. I think certainly, we would hope that if a developer came in and bought that property, this is Irving and Ash, where the former radio line was.
Yep.
We had a couple proposals a couple of years ago. The council said, no, let's wait to see what happens there. So again, this is kind of the cost of that, but again, I think kind of wait and see mode at this point on that one.
Yeah, as soon as a developer comes for that property, we'll get that worked in.
Yeah. Bike path resurfacing. This is the bike path that connects to the bridge over Irving Park. They've done, I believe Public Works has done some patching of areas that have been in great deterioration as needed. But again, this is ripe for a grant opportunity, so we are seeking those out. And again, if the path is dangerous, we're taking care of it, but otherwise we're seeking out grant opportunities and things of that nature to assist with this project.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Sure. Alderman Eugene Wesley.
So that resurfacing is only the bridge, or is that borderline to borderline?
It would be,
Mr. Woods?
yeah, it'd be, I guess, borderline to borderline, any part of that path that would wind through Wooddale. So yeah, not just the bridge. I was just kind of referencing the bridge as like it's just a point of reference. So.
Well, I have a follow-up on that.
Sure, go ahead.
So I thought, and maybe you could do some research on it, I thought there was agreement that we have to maintain it regardless. And if it's in that bad shape, we should repair it. It's a safety issue then, or shut the bridge down.
This is Director Lang. I can chime in on that.
Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, we do have maintenance responsibilities for the path where it crosses through Wooddale from approximately Prospect Avenue there near the train tracks to where it goes onto the road down on Brookwood Lane. We this year did resurface from Park Lane to the northern approach of the bridge. The bridge deck itself is concrete, but we did the asphalt between those areas. And we'll be looking to do some more along with the patching program here and there until we're able to do the path as a whole.
Okay. Alderman Eugene Wesley, you follow up?
So my point too is, now that we're on this thing, did they do the ductwork that we talked about?
The ductwork?
That the bricks were falling off that bridge?
Right, it's done.
Director Lang, do you want to?
Yes, they did repair the masonry at the approach of the bridge as a part of the Salt Creek Greenway Trail Bridge Rehabilitation Project, which will be finished up this year, but they have completed the masonry portion of it.
By Miller Lane, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Next.
So decorative streetlights, these you may recall would be similar to the ones that are on Wooddale Road right now, the Sternberg ones that are there. We'd identified 3 different phases of that, but a couple of years ago, these had got pushed back into the unfunded, and yeah, they're still, this is where we're at, but these would be the 3 phases still that have been identified.
Yeah.
Theoretically, you could move 1 phase to funded, or 2, you could split them up, obviously, but they're just on 1 sheet for ease of presentation.
Can I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Forgive my ignorance, but, oh, okay, sorry. Maple Meadows. I didn't see the Maple Meadows. Initially, I would obviously be a big fan for Wooddale Road, phase 1 and 2, but being that, we lost that development at SBC, we're still kind of wait and see, albeit we do have, some great developments that have come up. Is the phase 3 part of the project, is that any less than phase 2 or phase 1? Because I feel like with Starbucks, we are getting a lot more traffic in that area. So just wondering if phase 3 is a little cheaper than 2 or 1, could we maybe move that in?
No.
Well, there you have it.
This is Director Lang, Chairman.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Director.
Director Wesley spoke for you. Go ahead.
I don't think that installation of the decorative streetlights on Addison Road would be any cheaper than the portions along Wooddale Road. They each present their own unique challenges with existing utilities in coordination with DuPage County. So I think they would be relatively, I don't know the exact number of light poles which we required for any 1 phase, but I would assume that they would all be relatively in the same ballpark.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Alderman Smarsky.
Yeah, Alderman Messina, if that's what you want, you just ask to have it, 1 of those phases unfunded, that's all.
That's true, yeah.
You just ask for 1 of those phases to be unfunded and leave the other 2 unfunded. If you want Wooddale Road or Addison Road, then ask for Addison Road, or if you want Wooddale Road, whatever, you can leave 2 on and take 1 off.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, their first comment, so they're all unfunded right now. And I think with all the stuff we have going on,
yeah,
I would as much as anybody, since that's so from my house, would love to see them on Addison Road. Right now, and probably for the next year, you'll be in conflict with Western Cable or whoever that is running the fiber optic. and stuff. But I think we'll be, all things considered, we're gonna be in a better position next year to really look at some of those things and move them to where we want with a greater certainty economically than we can today. So I would, sure, go ahead, Mayor.
No, if anybody wants to know the prices, I believe we had them in last year's CIP book. I think they just combined them here together now, but they were at one time all broken up, so it gave an estimate for each phase.
Alderman Woods?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Jacobs.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if we could have, you know, for next year or whenever, if we could just maybe on the side of them have the exact dollar amounts like we did last year or whenever. Makes it a little bit easier when we're talking about it.
All right.
I just didn't, may I be recognized?
Sure, go ahead, Alderman Messina.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Alderman Woods, I didn't know with any of some of the construction, if it would be positive or negative. It sounds like it'd be more intrusive than anything. So.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy over there now. I'm kind of shocked at how much they're doing there, but.
Okay. Yeah, no, I would not want to move it to funded. Just forget I asked until
Yeah.
next.
I would be right with you if I thought we had a prayer of getting it done, but.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right. Next.
Just gonna say real quick.
Sure.
The what was in last year's CIP, phase 1, which was Montrose to Elizabeth, was about 240,000 estimated cost. Foster to 390, 570. And this is why I thought it played out. Addison from Irving to Maple Meadows, that entire run was estimated to be 840. So
Well, there is a difference in cost.
yeah, and I think a lot of there's length, and I know there's a ton of utility conflicts over there. You know, so yeah, so they were organized, you know, in the phases, and then also just, you know, bear in mind that each phase is more than the one before it. So whatever that's
right. And the other thing when we go to Addison Road is that site we really need to get with the county to get that sidewalk done, because it's probably one of the worst sidewalks in the city. It's just, I can't believe they even ran it that way. But
Hold my beer. I'll show you some other sidewalks.
all right. Well, it's up there with one of the worst ones.
I agree.
All right. Next, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, last sheet, page 55, Deer Path and Route 83 sanitary sewer loop. This is one that got identified. I think probably this is one that really probably doesn't take hold unless and until Deer Path, you know, gets annexed and all those people come onto sanitary. But it is something that's been identified that would potentially help the system, but.
Okay.
I have a follow-up on that.
Sure. Alderman Messina was first.
Okay.
Yeah, no, just I think probably going to be the same topic Merrill mentioned, right? So besides the annexation of some of those properties on Deer Path, I know initially when we brought this up, I believe there was a property on 83 that was interested, and that's hence where that looping came in. So we had some interest, but more importantly, I kind of want to see where that study from the county comes in. I'm not holding my breath because they're worthless. So I'll be curious to see if anything comes of that study from the county. But maybe we keep this on here as unfunded, and maybe we see what happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'll be buried before they do anything worthwhile.
Mayor, you were next if you have a.
Yeah, very simple. So same thing as what's going on over there on Arbor Woods and Dunley and whatnot. How many homes are still need to be annexed on Deer Path and whatnot? I think we have that all in our annexation paperwork. But what would be the net income if we annexed in all those homes and put in the storm or the water main and everything? Again, just an informational thing, just so we got some numbers. to go with this, that's all.
Okay, Alderman Jacob?
Yeah, I just, it looks like we're almost done. I'm missing our window wall. Did our window wall, our city window walls automatically fix themselves, or did they get repaired all of a sudden?
Been put off for 10 years, so it fell off.
Mr. Chairman.
It's a sore
Go ahead.
subject with Jeff.
Yeah, that actually got dropped out of last year's CIP. And I believe at that time I famously said, we're just going to wait for it to fall and then put up plywood. And so I think we're still.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, at the rate, the cost of plywood's going up, maybe the glass would be cheaper. So when,
Well, we use plexiglass. They make plenty
when
of
the
that
commodities stabilize, we can get it done.
We
I
use
just missed the
plexiglass.
window wall from being on there. Sorry.
All right. All right, so we're through it. So do we need a motion to approve it as amended?
I'll make that
So
motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Motion by Alderman Sismarski, seconded by Alderman Wesley. Roll call.
Alderman Sorrentino,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Woods,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Catalano,
Yes.
and Alderman Messina.
Yes.
That passes. What do we got next? Report and recommendation, items to be considered at future meetings. Is there anything,
I have one.
what is that, Mayor?
It's everybody's favorite discussion. I know the water fund is negative 3 years out. I'd like an update from Mr. Wilson at some point in the next month. How's the water situation going on? Did we go down another 5 million gallons? Did we come up a couple million gallons? How did the increases that we passed last year, are they working? Are we gonna have to do something else? I just want to know where we stand so we don't end up 8 or 9 months from now and we have to do another big jump instead.
So, Mr. Wilson, you can get that done in the next
Well, I would
month
just
or
say,
so?
I would just say the mayor's in luck because water rates are on the next committee meeting. So that will be 2
Well,
weeks.
good. See, look at that.
See, watch what you ask for.
Nice.
It wasn't on future, that's why I brought it up.
Is there anything else anybody would like to? Nope. All right.
I'll make a motion adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderman Sorrentino,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Woods,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski,
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Catalano,
Yes.
Alderman Messina.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Have a good night.
Hallelujah.